Everybody's looking for that perfect place to call home, but Iowa should be avoided at all costs if you can't handle these 7 things. Okay, that may be a little dramatic, but hey, Iowa isn't for everybody. And if you can't handle these 7 things, you may want to reconsider making that move to the state of Iowa. So what are these 7 things? Well, first off, let's talk about the weather. You may look behind me, you may say, hey, the weather doesn't look that bad. Well, you'd be correct right now. But here's the thing, we have winter. If you're not used to winter, Iowa is gonna be a rough one for you. We get super cold temperatures, we get snow. I remember one time we had what they call a polar vortex here in the state, and we got negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, again, that's not typical. That was a special occasion, but we saw it. I remember on that specific day, I was supposed to go into work at my engineering job, and the battery just didn't work. It was froze up, couldn't get in. Okay, just kidding. It actually did work, but I was super worried about it not working because it's just that dang cold. I remember the garage. I have a garage, and it was negative like 36 in the garage, negative 40 outside the garage. So amazing that my car did start because the battery was a little bit older, but it did, and we survived. But if those temperatures are way too cold for you, it's not a good option for you. And even if we don't get those extremes, the weather can still be a little bit inconvenient. Even right now, the temperatures are getting a little bit lower, in the upper 30s, lower 40s. And at that point, our tire pressures are getting lower and our tire pressure light comes on. So it's something that happens every single year. And if you're not from a colder temperature climate, it's gonna be something that you're gonna have to get used to, because every time it gets colder, my tire pressure light comes on. You fill the tires up, usually you're fine for most of the winter, but it is something that happens just because of how physics works. And I'm not gonna get into that because I don't want to bore you. I've lived in Iowa my whole life, so I know a thing or two about living in the state of Iowa. And people give me a call all the time because they want to know what it's really like living here. And I am a licensed realtor here, so if you have questions, I can help you out. Give me a call, send me a text. And if I can't help you out, you're moving somewhere that I don't service, I know a ton of people from all over the state that can help you. So give me a call today if you do have any questions that you need help answered. Now, the next one on my list is gonna be a little polarizing, but it's just something that we're living with right now. And that is the politics in the state of Iowa. Iowa is definitely a red state as I'm speaking today. All of our politicians, elected politicians right now, are Republican as far as I know. And I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure all of them are Republicans. And Iowa used to be really known to be kind of a purple state where it could go either all blue, all red, or a mixture in between. But in the last few years, things have really changed, and it's really looking to be a red state going forward, but it may not always be. But currently, we have things that have passed from our governor, like constitutional carry. If that's important to you and you're against it, Iowa may not be the state for you. We have a flat tax rate coming out that was pushed through our governor. We have the school choice bill that just got passed this year, where the students are being funded versus the public schools. So students can choose if they want to go to private school or a public school. So a lot of policies are being implemented by Republicans of different levels. And if that is not something you jive with, you may want to reconsider. But if a red state is not where you want to be right now, just know that it's not the purple state of old. It is currently a red state. So keep that in mind if you're moving to the state and that's not something you can live with. Well, that's just reality of what's going on right now. If you're somebody looking to move to the state of Iowa and you're thinking, I want to go live in a small town, well, just be warned, if you decide to do that, you're going to be traveling a lot. You're going to be traveling to get groceries. You're going to be traveling to go to sporting events if, say, your kids are in sports. You're going to be traveling just about anywhere to try to get some of the necessities. And I can tell you this because I grew up in a small town called Logan of about 1,500 people, and our nearest Walmart was about 30 minutes away. Whenever we had to go get groceries on a bulk scale, we'd have to drive that 30 minutes. And if you live in a city, you're not used to having to make that commitment to go get groceries. So you have to plan ahead. What's your grocery list look like? Because you're not gonna be able to go get it somewhere else conveniently. Now, a lot of these small towns do have smaller grocery stores, but typically their prices are gonna be a little bit higher. You're paying for the convenience of it being close, but you're probably not gonna be doing majority of your grocery shopping at these small town grocery stores just because that price is a little bit higher. So be ready to have to travel. And again, I talked about the sporting events. When I played sports in high school, we'd have to travel forever to get and compete with some of these neighboring schools that are other small towns dotted around the state. So just know that going in, if the ideal place you want to live is a small town in Iowa, just know you're going to be doing a lot of traveling to do a lot of different things. Now, Iowa has done a lot to bring in businesses of all different types, but that doesn't mean that we are not far away from our roots in agriculture and farming. So if you're moving to the state, you got to be prepared that we are still a farming, agricultural heavy state. And that includes not being ready for the tractors that are driving down the road that slow traffic down. That's an Iowa traffic jam. It's not being ready for the agricultural smells, if you want to say it that way. So the pig smells, the cow manure smells, those sorts of things happen as you're driving across the state and living in the state. And if you're not ready for that, or it's just not something you want to live with, just know we are still a very heavily agriculture state. It's a #1 economic driver. And it's just something that we had to live with if you're moving to the state. Now you can get away from it a little bit if you do live in one of our cities, but again, you're gonna see it. You're gonna see the corn, you can see the soybeans, you see the slow tractors, and you're gonna get some of those smells that may waft into the city every now and then. So be ready for that. And if it's not something you can live with, don't move to Iowa. But there are definitely some benefits of being a farm heavy industry here, and that is the farmers markets. Yes, we have a ton of farmers market. We have one of the largest in Des Moines. We have one of the best here in Davenport, just ranked as #1 farmers market. And it just goes to show that our strong community as farmers, we have it in farmers markets, so you can get fresh produce when you want it. So great as far as that aspect goes, but if all those other negatives are a problem for you, maybe rethink Iowa as the option of where you want to call your home. Now, if you are a professional sports league enthusiast, Iowa is not gonna be your favorite state to move to. We have, as far as I know, 0 professional sports teams here in the state of Iowa as far as the major leagues go. Yes, we have some minor leagues. We have like the Iowa Cubs in Des Moines. We have the River Bandits here in Davenport. We have the Iowa Wild, which is a hockey team. We have a lot of these feeder teams into those major leagues, but we don't have any major league sports here in the state. So what do us Iowans do? Well, we kind of adopt a major league team, and it a lot of times depends on where in the state of Iowa your teams are affiliated with. So if you're in northern Iowa, you're probably looking at Minnesota teams like the Minnesota Wild or the Minnesota Vikings. If you're on the eastern side, which is where I'm at, you're looking at a lot of Chicago teams, or Wisconsin, Green Bay Packers. And if you're southern, probably the Kansas City Chiefs. So we adopt a lot of these different sports teams into our culture here, but we don't have any major league sports teams here. So if that's important to you, you want to go to games like that, we just don't have them for you. So maybe reconsider Iowa if that's important to you. Now, one you may take for granted wherever you're at right now is maybe not as common as you might think here in the state of Iowa, and that is high-speed internet. Yes, we have high-speed internet here in the state, but if you're getting into one of these small towns out in the boonies, maybe even thinking about living on your own rural ranch somewhere, your options may be a little bit limited as far as the high-speed internet goes. Just here in Davenport, we just recently got fiber. Yes, Davenport is now being called a gigabit city, but that's only happened within the last few years. And if you get into one of these small towns, the chances of that happening are a little bit slimmer, not impossible. In fact, my mom in a small town that I grew up in just got fiber not too long ago, only about 1,500 people. So there are options out there, but if you're thinking you want to get into the backwoods of Iowa, just know if internet's important to you, it may not be what you think it is. Now, this next one was a shocker to my fiance when she decided to move over into Iowa from Illinois, and that was car registration. Car registration in the state of Iowa can be fairly expensive, and I never really understood this because it was just what I grew up with. But talking to her, in Illinois, prices as far as car registrations are extremely low compared to what you do here. They base it on the list price of the new car, and it's a percentage of whatever that list price was. And even on top of that, if you have a brand new car that's super heavy, you're actually paying for the tonnage as well. So you're paying, I believe, 40 cents for every 100 pounds that the car weighs. So it can add up very quickly if you have a truck or an SUV or something that's on the bigger size. So just know that it can be somewhat costly to register your car here, and it's really just not something that you can get around. So just know that if you're moving here. But if you want to know more about what Iowa is actually like, I can only cover so much in this video, but my number is popping up down below. If you're moving here and you want to move somewhere that I don't service, I know people from all over this state. I can get you hooked up, but you have to give me a call first. But if you want to see more about what Iowa is actually like, well, I got a video right here somewhere.